Hello, I'm Graham McLeod, and in this week's vlog I'm going to be looking and commenting on the speed of the market. I'm going to be looking at that process of how you can try and increase your chances of securing the property of your dreams, trying to give you some tips on how to avoid losing out. In short, I'm going to share some advice on how to become a power buyer. So if you've been thinking of moving this year, the chances are you are going to come up against some really fierce competition. The chances are, if you've already started looking, you've already noticed this, and indeed you may have missed out on at least one or two properties as you've been viewing. The truth is, the house that you want is going to be a house that the exact same buyers are going to be interested in buying too. So I'm just going to share with some successes and some sales from hunters in the last 7 days, just to try and illustrate how hot the current market is. So I've got 4 properties I want to share with you. These are all on sales that have been agreed by hunters over the last 7 days. And we've got really good examples here. We've got an example from Scotland, we've got an example from the west coast of Cumbria, up in Carlisle, and also down in the South Lakes area. In short, demand and competition for properties is very, very, very hot right across the whole area that we cover. So we're looking here at 4 properties that have been sale agreed. They all went through property launch, and we did 36 viewings across those 4. But we had a further 24 viewers who couldn't view, who weren't ready, who weren't in a position to take themselves forwards. On those 36 people who viewed, 10 people offered. And in total, it drove offers of £30,000 and more above the guide price. Not every property sold for the highest bid, because some buyers were in a better position than others. So it just shows that at the moment the market's still very, very hot, and I want to try and give you now some tips on how you can become a power buyer. So to be in pole position and to get the property of your dreams, you've got to be able to demonstrate that you are a stronger buyer position than the competition. Estate agents look for 3 types of power buyer. The first one is somebody who is sold subject to contract. The second type of power buyer who's somebody's already chain free. And the third type of buyer is somebody who can proceed and is a cash buyer. So let's look at that, and I'm going to give you some tips about how you can get yourself in this position. So the first thing, if you've got a property to sell, you need to get your property on the market and get sold subject to contract. The truth of the matter is that very few sellers will consider selecting a buyer who's still to sell their own house. Realistically, the chances of you buying a new property without having yours sold are very, very slim. Now, a lot of our colleagues, a lot of our customers will say to us, well, look, if I sell first, what happens if I can't find? Well, the thing is, I've done this job for 25 years. I can tell you it can take a few hours to put a deal together from the initial launch on the market. But even then, it's 3 to 4 months before you're going to be looking at a situation where you need to move out. And I have never, ever met somebody who has involuntarily made themselves homeless. If we can't bring the timeline of your buyer together with your expectations and you can't find, all we do is we start again. We've put you in a position where you're a power buyer for a time and you've lost nothing, particularly an agent like Hunters where there's no compulsory sales fees up front. All it did, it just put you in that position for a short time of finding a house of your dreams. The second bit of advice to become a power buyer is get a mortgage in principle, particularly if you're a first-time buyer. The truth is, to try and get a mortgage appointment can take 2 to 3 weeks with a bank or a building society. The appointment could be 2-3 hours long, and you could wait a couple of days before you get your decision back as to whether the lender is going to lend to you. Now, every estate agent will say to you 2 things as a first-time buyer. 1, have you got a mortgage in principle? 2, can you evidence the savings in your deposit from a bank account or a savings account? So you need to get those ready. So go about the business of getting yourself mortgage ready right from outset. At Hunters, we work with Embrace. We can give you a decision from multiple lenders in a matter of 30 minutes to let you know where you potentially get a loan. But hey, you don't need to come to us, but to be a power buyer, you need to get your mortgage in principle in place. And the third type of power buyer that we want to talk about as a bit of advice for you is cash buyers. If you're a cash buyer, shout loudly about it. Cash means cash in the bank. Cash buyer means you've got nothing to sell. And because there's such competition for really, really competitive properties, we can always pretty much say that it's likely it's going to go above guide price. So if you're a cash buyer, it makes you less risky for our sellers, and you're more likely to have your offer accepted. In Scotland, we find this is a really, really pertinent point where when you bring a property to market, you need a home report in place. That home report contains a mortgage valuation. So a surveyor has always given his assessment what the house is worth, and therefore the amount of money a lender is going to give you is already set. Now, what I would say to you is that if you're a cash buyer in those circumstances, there's a very good chance you're going to be able to get a good offer accepted and recognised as a real power buyer. Final thing I would say to you is if you're a seller looking to sell anywhere, but in particularly in Scotland, and you decide to do it privately, my advice, I wouldn't. I'd get an agent. But I would say that, wouldn't I, as an estate agent? But look, a good estate agent is going to have cash buyers waiting. And in any market, if the advice was do not sell to the first buyer, sell to the best buyer, this is it. And we'd always be delighted to talk to people who we can introduce our register of cash buyers and drive you the best price. So that's it for the vlog this week. I hope you've seen something interesting or heard something useful. Anything to do with your property needs, be it selling, renting, mortgages or conveyancing, please do get in touch with my friendly team here at Hunters.